Well, we turn our attention now back to, when the news broke, it was big at the time, lots of reactions about it. There still is, because if you have gone through some of the papers today, you see them talking about negotiations continuing, despite killings ascribed to the federal government. You see all kinds of stories. Well, this morning, to discuss that with us is Captain Umar Aliyu, who joins us again today. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Good morning.
Well, it was actually, there was this hazy situation. People were not too sure, even till they fine-tune everything with a fine comb. Are they really negotiating with Boko Haram? And then you have that incident yesterday where someone said to have died. But when you saw all of this and from what you've gone through, what do you think of this?
Well, from my position as an observer, I think the word fine-tuning was apt there. The process, the negotiation process itself could have been fine-tuned properly, because I want to see two possibilities. The two possibilities are, it's either someone is sabotaging that process and he has real room to do so. The room was unconsciously created, or the process itself, as in the ceasefire, is not sincere. It could have actually been, do I say, orchestrated. Let me share my thoughts with you on this. You see, negotiation itself that will bring about a ceasefire is born of what we call alternative dispute resolution. And when you do that, you normally have two disputants coming together to either agree that it's time for us to negotiate, or you have a third party initiating such a negotiation, that's the mediator, or you also have the weaker of the disputing groups initiating the negotiation. Now, I want to believe that the inroads we made after the supposed death of Imam Shekau may have pressured the Boko Haram to actually come to the negotiation table. That's a possibility. But then, that negotiation table itself couldn't have actually had one of the disputants as the mediator. Don't forget, there's an international joint task force of Chad, Niger, Nigeria, and Cameroon. Idris Deby of Chad was now said to be the man who actually anchored these negotiations. We are not clear whether it was in Chad or in Saudi Arabia. There are the conflicting reports. Now, if you were to profile Boko Haram for what they are, and the body language we have been able to glean of them in the last 2 years, you discover that ceasefire for Boko Haram is not binding. By its nature, ceasefire itself is not binding on the disputants. The reason is because being an alternative dispute resolution option is not like a court finding where if you break or do not respect the ceasefire, the court will fine you or you pay a certain thing. Okay, ceasefires are normally brokered and certain things come out of it. And in most cases, it is unlikely that one of those whose armed forces are presently contending with one side of the dispute will be the mediator. So that is food for thought. Next is the fact that ceasefire, if you look at Boko Haram and respecting of ceasefires, whether formally declared by the government or brokered by third parties, you're going to see that they do not have a history of respecting these agreements. Let's look at it this way. If you were to draw a chronicle of all Boko Haram events, as in dialogues, amnesty endeavors or entreaties from the federal government, and you were to append symbols to each of those events, let's put 1 on each and every one they respected and 0 to each and every one they did not respect. At the end of that chronicle you've made, you're going to see a proliferation of zeros. So based on that, you can say these guys don't have a history of respecting a ceasefire. We do it every day. You can actually look at the antecedents of a footballer and tell us just where to fit him next. You could actually see our meteorologists do it. They'll tell you what the weather tomorrow will look like. They're actually using benefit of data, information, intelligence to project to some measure of accuracy what you can expect. Boko Haram does not really have anything to do with, respecting agreements or ceasefires. Now, Imam Shekau came up. One Ladi Ahmadu came out to say he was the security advisor to Imam Shekau. Imam Shekau was alive, and he was speaking on their behalf. From what I have gathered from my own data on Boko Haram is led by Imam Shekau, who presides over what you call a shura. A shura is like a council of elders. He has no second. No second. Okay? Now, if Imam Shekau has no second, and armed forces actually killed someone who was purported to be a proxy of Imam Shekau, then there is the possibility, very high indeed, that Imam Shekau is dead. And that man is actually using to leverage an impression that he's alive. And that proxy was killed. The Imam Shekau I know, having profiled him, is a choleric. A choleric is, let me use layman language, he's hot-tempered. If you look at Shekau, if you listen to his speeches, if you listen to the words he emphasizes, you know that this is a man who is actually not interested in negotiation. And if you go into history, you will know that the late Abubakar Yusuf had a hard time keeping Shekau in line. Shekau was for aggression. Shekau was for war. Yusuf Abubakar somehow managed to always keep him in line. And at the demise of Yusuf Abubakar, Shekau broke away. He broke away. His body language, his way of doing things, his modus operandi is not given to negotiation. He's fixed and he's on his way. And whatever he has to do, he will do it. Shekau again is de facto. De facto even within the shura. They don't question him. He says what he wants to do and he goes right ahead and does it.
Even though he has that council?
Even if, of course, even with the council, I assure you. Let me give you a very typical example of what I'm trying to say. Once upon a time, one Muhammad Abu Muhammad ibn Abdul Aziz came out to say he was representing Imam Shekau and he was saying things about a possible ceasefire. And instantly they denounced it. Instantly. Shekau and Abu Kaka are basically the two faces of Boko Haram we can append some legitimacy to. Though it is rare, but once in a while you see them either on YouTube or some other social media footages making speeches. If Shekau was not available, peradventure he's late, peradventure his clone is late, one Abu Kaka telling the world that a ceasefire has been reached would have been more like it.
Because we haven't seen that yet.
We haven't seen that yet. Now, be that as it may, Ahmadu Danladi came out and claimed he was the security advisor to Shekau and he was declaring a ceasefire. Well, let's take that on its facial merit. 24 hours later, an incident occurred. I would have expected Ahmadu Danladi to redeem that ceasefire by doing what? Coming out to denounce that attack. But it's silence. Now let me tell you my own line of thinking here. Our federal government really went out to, broker a ceasefire, but certain windows were left open. We did not fine-tune it. A ceasefire should come with conditions from the disputant, from the insurgent. A ceasefire could also, maybe, not always have duration. But there was none of this. It was an open ceasefire. And having said that again, I want to believe that where you have a ceasefire, there should be what I call both parties coming out to actually acknowledge. But one party actually acknowledged on behalf of the other party. One party, the federal government, informed us that Boko Haram has actually asked for a ceasefire, and we are accepting. Now look at the scenario. If you had an issue with someone else, and you have come out to say he has accepted peace, and that person is silent, there is room for mischief makers to want to exploit that situation to either sabotage or even ridicule the process. Now we had a team of people coming out to kill like 40 on Saturday morning. Boko Haram has not come out to denounce that. They have not also come out to claim
responsibility.
Yes. And that is because right from the time the negotiations were going on, someone was not actually earmarked to be like the man we have recourse to from the Boko Haram. Don't forget, Boko Haram has been largely faceless. So we're looking at a situation where we should try to go on to negotiation for ceasefire with, eliciting commitment from the parties involved. People who are close to the Boko Haram, people who have inroads to the Boko Haram, like Sheikh Husani, like Abubakar Salchida. I've followed them closely on mail. And I can tell you that they declared their skepticism on this arrangement, because the Boko Haram, as we all know, is a group of human beings, and we human beings, we are creatures of habit. It's not in their character to actually call for a ceasefire. And if you look at it, as at the time they were calling for a ceasefire, we were already making inroads. In fact, they were, if I say they were actually at the receiving end now, they were registering losses.